Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at the very first chapter of the Quran,
Mm-hmm.
Al-Fatihah,
Yeah.
also known as the opening.
Right.
And you might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, just one chapter. Like, how deep can we really go with this?
Oh, trust me, you'd be surprised, huh? Even these 7 verses pack a punch, right? There's so much to unpack there. I mean, we're talking about like core Islamic beliefs, controversies about how it's interpreted over the centuries.
Right.
And some people even say that there's like mathematical secrets kind of encoded within them.
Yeah, it's a good thing we have these two really interesting sources to help guide us.
Yeah.
One is a modern Reformist Translation,
Uh-huh.
the kind that really, they like to challenge some of the traditional takes on things.
Yeah.
And then the other one is a little bit more on the scholarly side, a
Mm-hmm.
commentary that's really steeped in the historical and theological context.
So it's like we have these two lenses, right? Two different lenses that we're going to use to examine this diamond, which is Al-Fatihah,
Exactly.
and just see what different facets come out when we look at it from these different perspectives.
Yeah, because it really is a diamond. It's recited in every single prayer.
Right.
And so, imagine that for a lot of people, it's the very first thing they ever hear
Yeah.
from the Quran.
It's the foundation.
It's the foundation. Yeah, that prayer.
That connects them to God.
Yeah, it's a direct connection.
What's really fascinating to me is, how much this one chapter reflects just the core of Islamic belief.
Yeah.
Like the oneness of God and, how important it is to actually seek guidance.
Yes.
So, we'll get into all of that and how even this short chapter, like I said, has sparked debates among scholars, throughout history.
Okay, well, before we get into all of that good stuff, I think it's important for us to just actually hear Al-Fatihah.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I'm going to recite it first in Arabic, which
Yeah.
is the original language of the Quran. Recites Al-Fatihah in Arabic. Beautiful, right.
Absolutely beautiful.
And now I'm going to read the English from both of our sources.
Okay.
So we can get a sense of kind of the different ways that it can be understood.
Right.
So from the more traditional source,
Mm-hmm.
in the name of God, the beneficent, the merciful. Praise be to God, Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, master of the day of judgment. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have evoked your anger, or of those who are astray.
Okay.
And now, from the Reformist Translation.
All right.
In the name of God, the beneficent, the sustainer. All praises for God, sustainer of the worlds, the beneficent, the providing. Master of the day of recompense. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, not those who have incurred your wrath, nor of those who have gone astray.
Yeah, so just hearing those two side by side, you can already start to get a sense of the power of this chapter. Like how much is packed into just those few words.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that jumps out at me right away is even just the rhythmic flow of the Arabic. It's captivating.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like it pulls you in, right?
Yes.
And I think the way it's translated in English, it just highlights those different ways of understanding it, right? Like, for example, you hear the Reformist Translation uses sustainer instead of Lord.
Yeah.
It emphasizes a slightly different aspect, right? Like God's role as the one who provides and nourishes all of creation.
Okay, so I think we should really just break it down verse by verse and look for just any interesting details and imagery that we see in both sources.
Okay.
So we start with, in the name of God, the beneficent, the merciful.
Right.
Or, in the name of God, the beneficent, the sustainer.
Yeah, so right from the beginning, we're invoking God, right?
Yes.
We're invoking God's quality.
Yeah, we're naming God.
And those qualities, they're fundamental to the way Muslims understand God, right?
Yeah.
So like beneficent, that speaks to this idea of God's universal mercy, right?
Okay.
It's extended to all creation.
Yeah, it's all encompassing.
And then providing or sustainer, that points to the fact that God is constantly caring for us and providing for every living thing.
It's like, it's sustenance.
It's sustenance,
It's saying that we're not alone.
We have this source.
There is a support.
Yeah. And I think that's such a powerful reminder, especially in a world where it can feel very chaotic sometimes.
And then right after that, we get this phrase, Lord of the worlds.
Yeah.
Which I think is so interesting because it's not just saying God is the Lord of humans.
It's everything. It's everything.
It's a cosmic perspective, right?
It's huge.
It's like a zoom out, like way out.
Yeah, it's like a wide lens.
Yeah, it's like challenging us to see ourselves as just this tiny little part
Of this massive interconnected web of existence, right?
Right.
And all of it is being sustained by
The same power.
the same power, yeah. And I think that really like sets the stage
Wow.
for the whole chapter, you know? And really, I think for the whole Quran in a way. It's like that foundation.
Yeah, I like
Like,
that.
okay, here's where we're starting from.
Right.
This is the big picture, you know?
And then immediately after that, we get Master of the Day of Judgment, which
Yeah, I mean, it's heavy.
it's heavy. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, this is serious.
It's serious.
It's like, accountability.
But it's an ability
accountability.
that introduces that whole concept,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not just this life, there's something after.
Right.
And our actions here, they matter.
They have consequences.
They have consequence. And that's a big part of Islamic belief, right?
Right.
You know, the Day of Judgment, that's when everyone is held accountable for what they did.
So it's like, be good.
Be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It adds a layer of seriousness to it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, God is merciful, God
Yeah.
provides, but like there's justice too,
Yeah.
you know, like this balance.
Okay, and then moving on, I noticed that the Reformist Translation points out something interesting about these words, Rahman and Rahim, which are the words that are usually translated as beneficent, merciful, or,
Merciful and compassionate is another way you'll see it.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, these are big ones, right? when it comes to describing God in Islam, like they're emphasizing God's mercy and compassion for literally all of creation.
Yes, and it's almost like two sides of the same coin,
Right, exactly.
right?
Okay.
Like one is this inherent mercy that God has.
Like it's God's nature to be merciful.
Yeah, and then the other one is like,
Yeah, it's like, you know, specific compassion shown to those who believe and do good.
but I think what's so interesting is that the Reformist translators,
Yeah.
they actually try to avoid using gendered language for God.
Yeah, they're very intentional about that. That's a really, I think, key aspect of their approach to the whole translation, right?
Right.
They're trying to make it gender neutral. So they're challenging that traditional interpretation, you know, where God is always like a he or a him. And they're opening up this whole new way of thinking about God's attributes,
So
right?
almost like they're saying, hey, God is beyond gender.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And it really makes you think about how language shapes our understanding of these things.
It really does. It's
Yeah.
so powerful, right?
Yes.
The words we use, they frame how we think.
It's true.
And so this is a really conscious effort to kind of shift that framework.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
And it's just a reminder that even our language about God is constantly evolving.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. But moving on, we come to like this really important verse. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. It's like this declaration of devotion and dependence, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting how this verse shifts, right? Like from describing God to actually like outlining how we should relate to God.
It is. It's like it becomes very direct, right?
well,
It's
yeah.
like, okay, this is how we're supposed to approach this,
Yeah.
you know? It's acknowledging that God has the sole right to be worshipped.
Yeah.
And it's emphasizing our reliance on God, you know, for help in all matters.
And it's not just a passive reliance, right?
No, it's active.
It implies like an active effort on our part to actually seek that guidance.
It's like a two-way street.
Yes.
Right. It's like we have to recognize our limitations, you know?
Right.
We're not perfect.
Yeah.
We need that guidance.
Which brings us to, I think, maybe the most crucial part of this chapter.
Okay.
The plea for guidance to the straight path.
Yeah, this is the heart of Al-Fatihah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, both translations, they use slightly different wording,
Right.
but that essence is the same, right?
Yeah. It's like guide us.
Guide us, show us the way, yeah.
Yes. So what does this straight path actually represent in Islamic belief?
So in Islam, it's this powerful metaphor,
Yeah.
right? It's this metaphor for a life that's lived in accordance with God's will.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's about striving for moral and spiritual excellence, seeking knowledge, acting with justice and compassion.
I feel like this idea of guidance is so central to Islam.
Oh, absolutely.
It's woven throughout the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad's teachings.
I mean, think about it. The Quran is literally seen as a guide for humanity, right?
That's its whole purpose.
Yeah, like it's revealing the path.
To a good life.
Yeah, to a meaningful and fulfilling life, both in this world and the hereafter.
And the study Quran, it actually emphasizes that this is not just like a general concept of guidance.
Yeah.
Right? It's actually about every conceivable aspect of human life.
That's what makes it so relevant, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about rituals or, religious practices.
Yeah, it's about life.
It's about how we live our lives, yeah.
Yes, in our relationships, at work, in our communities.
Every facet of it, right.
So how do we find this straight path?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, it's really a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
It's about seeking knowledge, reflecting on our actions, and constantly trying to align ourselves with God's will.
But it's not always easy, right?
No, absolutely not.
Like life throws us curveballs.
Life is messy.
And sometimes we, maybe stray from the path.
Yeah, but that's where the concept of repentance comes in.
Yeah.
Right? Like Islam teaches that God is always willing to forgive those who sincerely turn back.
Right.
It's a message of hope.
Yeah.
It's a message of renewal. It's saying that even when we mess up, we can always find our way back.
Okay, so we've talked about the straight path, but there's this next part of the verse that I want to get into.
Yeah.
It says, "The path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have evoked your anger, or of those who are astray." So it seems like there's different paths, right?
You're right. It's drawing a contrast,
Yeah.
right, between those who are guided and those who are not, and it's a reminder that our choices, they have consequences,
Yeah.
and that the path we choose in this life, it matters.
So who are these people that have evoked God's anger or are astray?
That's a good question. The verse doesn't really give us specifics,
Right.
and there are different interpretations out there. Some scholars say that it refers to those who just outright reject God's guidance.
Yeah.
While others say that it's more about people who are just lost, they're caught up in their desires and they're distracted and they can't see the truth.
And I think it's so interesting how even just this one verse has generated centuries of discussion and debate.
Well, that's the beauty of the Quran, right? I mean, it invites us to think critically, to ponder those deeper meanings, and to engage in dialogue.
And Al-Fatihah being the opening chapter.
Right. It sets the stage.
It sets the stage for all of that.
Yeah, for that ongoing exploration.
But before we get too deep into interpretation, I wanted to touch on one more thing that I thought was really interesting that the Reformist Translation points out.
Okay.
And that is this hidden mathematical code.
Oh, yeah.
Within the Quran.
This is where things get really interesting, right?
And they specifically point to Al-Fatihah as an example.
Yeah, the idea of this mathematical code, it's definitely intriguing.
It's very intriguing.
And some people see it as evidence of the Quran's divine origins,
Yeah, it's
It's something beyond human design.
It's wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's something else going on here.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's fascinating that, even the Reformist Translation, which challenges a lot of traditional interpretations,
Yeah.
they still acknowledge this code, right?
It's like they're saying, look, even if you don't agree with everything we say, there's still this undeniable mathematical wonder here.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
It's a different level of looking at it.
So tell me more about the code. What's the significance of the number 19?
So the idea is that the number 19 appears throughout the Quran in all these different ways.
Okay.
It's woven into the very fabric of the text.
So give me an example, how does it manifest in Al-Fatihah specifically?
So, for example, the number of letters in the opening phrase, "In the name of God, the beneficent, the providing," is 19.
Oh, wow.
And if you look at the whole chapter, you'll find all these other numerical patterns
That are based on 19.
that are based on multiples of 19, yeah.
And then the Reformist Translation, they point out that this discovery was made in 1974.
Yeah.
Which is, get this, 1406 lunar years after the revelation of the Quran.
Wait, 1406, what's the...
And guess what 19 times 74 is?
1406.
1406, yeah.
Wow, that's something else.
Yeah, so I don't know what to make of that.
I don't either.
But it definitely makes you think.
It's thought-provoking, for sure.
Yeah, are there these deeper layers of meaning,
Yeah.
that we haven't even begun to uncover?
And even without the mathematical code, I think Al-Fatihah really stands on its own as this profound and powerful chapter.
Absolutely.
It's so full of meaning.
Yeah.
It's so relevant to our lives.
It's a reminder that the Quran is not just some ancient text,
Yeah.
It's a living source of guidance
Yes.
and inspiration.
Okay, so we've explored the meaning of the individual verses.
Mhm.
We've kind of delved into some of the different interpretations.
Yeah.
We've even touched upon this idea of a hidden mathematical code.
Right.
So what does all of this tell us about the broader significance of Al-Fatihah
Yeah.
in Islamic thought?
I think it's safe to say that Al-Fatihah, it's so much more than just like the first chapter.
Wow.
Like it's like this microcosm of the whole belief system, you know?
It encapsulates everything.
It encapsulates everything, yeah.
So amazing how much we've unpacked in just these 7 verses, you know?
Yeah.
We've talked about God's attributes, the importance of guidance, the day of judgment, the power of prayer, and even this mind-blowing idea of a mathematical code embedded in it all.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, like, what does it all mean for us? You know? Like, what about the listeners? How can we apply these teachings to our own lives?
That's the question, right? Like, how do we take these insights and actually turn them into action?
Yeah.
You know, turn them into a way of life.
Well, I think the Reformist Translation really stresses, you know, this idea of personal responsibility and critical thinking, right?
Yeah, they want us to actually engage with the text.
Yes.
You know, like use our own brains, you know?
Yeah.
Come to our own understanding, not just blindly accept what we've been told.
It's like an invitation.
It's an invitation.
To really be an active participant in our faith.
Absolutely. Like Islam, it actually encourages questioning.
Yeah.
You know? Seeking knowledge.
Right.
And really striving to deepen our understanding.
And I think the study Quran stresses the importance of context, right?
Absolutely.
Like understanding the historical circumstances surrounding...
right, like when it was revealed and why it was revealed.
Yeah.
You know, who it was revealed to, yeah.
So we can avoid...
Yeah, because that helps us like really appreciate the nuances.
Yeah.
And it helps us avoid misinterpretations, you know? Because it's not meant to be this rigid set of rules.
Right. It's a guide.
It's a guide, yeah.
It's a living, breathing guide.
Exactly. It's speaking to the human experience.
Right.
You know, it's not static.
So it's like our understanding of it evolves over time.
It does.
As we grow and as we learn.
Absolutely. I mean, what might have seemed clear to us, you know, at one point in our lives, might take on a whole new meaning when we face new challenges or, you know, gain new perspectives.
It's almost like a continuous journey of discovery.
It is.
With the Quran.
Yeah, we keep peeling back those layers and finding new insights.
And it all starts with Al-Fatihah.
Right.
Like it's the opening.
It's the invitation.
Yeah, to this lifelong exploration.
The faith, meaning, purpose, all of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, you know, we started this whole deep dive asking, like, what is the core message of Al-Fatihah?
Right.
You know, how is it interpreted? And what's its significance, you know?
We've come a long way.
I think we have. I think we've really gotten somewhere, you know? We've seen that it's about acknowledging God, seeking guidance, and striving to live a righteous life.
But it's also about recognizing the importance of our own interpretation, our own critical thinking and contextual understanding.
It's not just about blindly following. It's about engaging.
Right. And it's not a solitary journey, right?
No, it's not.
Like, it's about dialogue. Respecting other perspectives.
Different perspectives.
Yeah, and like working together to build a better world.
Absolutely.
For everyone.
Yeah, and I think Al-Fatihah, it reminds us that this search for the straight path, it's a process.
It is.
It's ongoing, you know?
It never ends.
It never ends, and it requires humility, you know?
Yeah. And
perseverance and this willingness to constantly learn and grow.
What stands out to you most from what we've talked about with Al-Fatihah?
I don't know. I think for me, it's that emphasis on seeking guidance. It's like this theme that runs through the whole thing.
Throughout the whole Quran, yeah.
Yeah, and in a world where it feels like there's so much uncertainty, you know, so much complexity, that idea of seeking guidance, it's both comforting and challenging, you know?
It's like a comfort,
especially,
but also a challenge.
Especially when you consider that there are so many interpretations, you know?
And perspectives.
So how do we navigate that? You know, like how do we find that straight path when there are so many paths to choose from?
And I think that brings us to kind of what we want listeners to take away from this deep dive, you know? Al-Fatihah is like this beautiful invitation to this lifelong conversation.
And with the Quran itself.
With the Quran, It's calling us to engage with the text, to seek guidance.
And to actually live a life that reflects those values. You know, compassion, justice, mercy.
It's not just about us. It's about everyone.
Right, exactly. It's about contributing to a better world.
Yeah. And it's a reminder that this journey, it's not easy, right? It takes work.
It takes humility. It takes perseverance.
So we encourage you, our listeners, to take some time this week to read Al-Fatihah.
Read it slowly. Read it deliberately.
Yes, slowly, deliberately pay attention to the words, the rhythm, the imagery. What new insights might you discover? What resonates with you?
And what do you take away from it?
Yeah, what do you take away?
That's something we hope you'll ponder, as we wrap up this deep dive.
Until next time.
Yeah, keep seeking, keep questioning.
Keep exploring.